Hi everyone, welcome to our C-Suite Dads video series. I am here with Ravi Rajaratnam. He is an executive coach and father, and we've got a number of these videos coming down the road with other experts and thought leaders. But today, Ravi is here to talk about the purpose of fatherhood and how to find your purpose. And so I'm really excited to join you in conversation, Ravi.
Thank you, Brian. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So how did you come to this concept of like a purpose-driven fatherhood, so to speak?
Okay. The biggest thing is, as a parent, you don't have an instruction manual, right? So I wanted to come up with something that we can give our parents. And I've done a lot of informal coaching in the workplace. And a lot of the times when they're having issues at the workplace, it stems from the home front, right? And whether I don't have time with the family or whatever, it's like, what can I do? How can I incorporate some of the things in terms of fatherhood and being a good spouse and things like that, you know, at home as well, blending that into it. And that's when I came up with this. Okay, do you even know what your purpose as a father is? So for today, I thought I'll just give a sneak peek to your audience and like a two-part thing. First part is, what is your purpose as a father and why having a purpose is important? And then the second part would, how do you arrive at your purpose if you don't have one? And then tips on practicing and reinforcing purposeful fatherhood. What is your purpose as a father? So I ask you that question, Brian. You're a father. So what's your purpose as a father?
Yeah, I think fundamentally, this was a tip that my father-in-law and my dad gave me as well. But the purpose is honestly to create opportunities and experiences for our kids, to expose them to as many opportunities so that they can understand who they are and what they want out of life, really.
Excellent, excellent. Because when you talk to fathers from around the globe, right, with different cultures and things like that, you might have a different answer.
Yeah.
Uh, and most of the time, I ask them, is the purpose the same as your father or grandfather? Chances are good that your purpose is different than the one held by your father or grandfather because you have been evolving as well, right? Uh, Primarily, previous generations saw their purpose as financially supporting their families, right, and providing discipline to the children. But now, has it shifted more into nurturing, like to your point, right, exposing to different opportunities, learning about themselves, and evolving? So that's why it's important that you nail that down in terms of what your purpose as a father is. So it's a good answer. Uh,
Thanks.
and the key thing that you want to find out is, has it changed? Because when my dad was a breadwinner, single breadwinner, and my mom was a homemaker, and he was never around. But the time that we had together, that was like quality time, right? Uh, but the majority of the nurturing came from my mother. Now has that shifted, right? Especially now in a new environment where we're working in a hybrid workplace and work from home, right? So that's something that you need to do. If your purpose was different before, should you be altering your purpose, and what are you doing, to reinforce that? So the second question, Brian, is, why is having a purpose important? Which is like a lead-in question there.
Yeah. Uh, for me, I think it allows me to have a grounding, like not that I do this every day, but pretty frequently I check in with my girls about what they like, how their days were, what they want to be when they grow up. And obviously when they're 5 and 7 now, that a lot of it is just, well, I want to be a teacher, I want to be this. And it's very shallow and cute. But those kind of, there's some evolution happening there too. And so as a dad, I want to make sure that I'm, again, constantly assessing, am I helping or hindering that growth in themselves? Yeah. Or in themselves.
Okay. Great answer. Because most of the time, if you don't have a goal, right, you're just doing it aimlessly, right? So I like to come up with a purpose, right, where because it shapes or influence your daily actions, your goals, and behaviors. Because why is that important? Because kids are little sponges. They might not listen to you, but they are looking at everything. They're observing everything. They're great at using mom said this. Why are you saying this? Things like that. So it's important to make sure that you have the purpose written down and doing a gut check. Am I saying the right things? Am I behaving the right way? How am I interacting with others with respect and empathy and things like that? They observe all that. And then the other stuff too, right? When I was growing up, right? Not my parents, but somebody else. If something, something went wrong, it was like, well, suck it up, you figure it out and things like that. But how am I supposed to figure it out if you haven't showed me how to figure it out, right? Be a man and things like that, right? Uh, so again, making sure that you are empathizing with them, understanding it's okay to be mad, it's okay to be sad, but why is that causing you that way? So what would you do to do? So everything is purposeful with the end goal in mind and not sweating the small stuff. uh, Seek first to understand before being understood, right? Stephen Covey, I love that. I tell all my children, there's a reason why God gave you 2 ears and one mouth, right? Seek first to understand before being understood. But many times, as parents, we think we know it all, right?
Yeah.
Even though what we say might be right, right? But again, you need to hear them as well. So that's important. And always looking at the big picture. So that's why having a purpose is important.
Yeah. Well, and to be, how do I want to say this? Resilient in that purpose, but also flexible, right? Because as our kids grow, they're going to need different things from us. And I have a distinct memory of my grandfather telling me, or actually, sorry, I asked my grandfather why he called my mom by her first name and
Uh-huh.
never referred to her as his daughter. And he said, well, she's grown now, right? She doesn't need me as a dad. And that's, I still think she needs him, right? Like there is still a need, but obviously our relationships evolve and change as our kids grow. And to be able to adapt our purpose, or yeah, adapt as needed over the years is critical too.
Yep. Yep. So now that we covered the first part, which is what's your purpose as a father and why it's important to have a purpose, let's look at the second part, which is basically how do you arrive at a purpose if you don't have one? I encourage every single person to have a mission statement, right? Why do you exist? What's your goal in life and things like that? What makes you tick?
Yeah.
And does your mission statement also include children, part of the family,
Mhm.
community, workplace, and things like that? So that's what's important. So if you don't have a purpose, start with your mission statement, and mission statement needs to be all encompassing. They talk about 5 F's and 7 F's, friends, family, faith, community, finance and things like that. So make sure it's all rounded. And once from you have that mission statement, how you want to be a role model or what do you want for your family, which includes your children. From there, you can come up with a purpose,
Yeah.
right? In terms of being a purposeful father.
Yeah.
So don't try to boil the ocean. Take one habit at a time and perhaps practice it for a week.
Mhm.
Reinforce it, see what the reaction is and things like that. One of the best times in our household when the kids were growing up were dinner time. And we made sure it's non-negotiable. Whatever your school schedule is, extracurricular activities, we're all going to eat together. And that is the best time to bond. But many times, what do we do now? We're watching TV and eating, or something. Everybody has different schedules, things like that.
Yeah.
So I would say start with your mission statement first, and then from there we go forward.
Yeah. Oh, that's
That
great.
makes sense.
Totally. Yeah. And it reminds me, I talk with a lot of dads who I think have the big picture idea, right? Like, well, this is what I want to be, or this is what I want my relationship to be. And it's great. It's that big, hairy, audacious goal, like so many we've learned to create in our businesses. But the smaller goals, the action steps, the daily engagement that really you have to have that will lead to that big goal is sometimes forgotten about, or we don't know, because we're breadwinners or we're too busy, in all of these other aspects of our life. Like you mentioned, like there's so many other things, that we forget to do hard work, right? And as leaders, right, like we have teams that will do all of that nitty gritty work. We learn to delegate really well as we get up into senior leadership, but to forget about at home, or at home though we don't have that, right? We sometimes forget, like, oh yeah, I'm the grunt worker for my kids some days. And so how do we not lower ourselves, but how do we get on their level, right? Like especially as our kids are little, how do we get down on our knees and talk with them so that there's some equity there and eye to eye contact rather than like looking down and potentially scaring them or creating a power dynamic that we don't want. So
Yeah.
I love the idea of having the mission, but then how are we living up to that mission?
Excellent. You hit on a point down there too, where a lot of people's leaders, right, especially, they're great at work, but they don't practice the same thing at home.
Right.
Why is that? And I've asked that question to some of the leaders. And it's like, because Robbie, I'm exhausted. When I'm at work, I'm on. So when I come home, I just want to chill. I don't want to think about all this and things like that. But you're a parent, you have responsibilities as well. So can we get at least maybe a third of what you do in the workplace, right, at home as well,
Yeah.
and then amp it up, or maybe do that more, during the weekends when you don't have the work schedule and things like that you have to worry about. Because why is that important? Because they're your future, right?
Yeah.
There's a reason why you do that workplace. Parenting, that's the reason why you're a parent. So you have responsibility there as well. So
Yeah.
let's not, slack off here. So that's important. And then some of the tips for practicing and reinforcing purpose for fatherhood. I talked a little bit about it, but pick 5 habits, for instance. It could be things like going for a walk, right? Eating together, I mentioned that. Or practice gratitude, volunteer your time, do some charity work, get them involved, show them, how being involved in the community and taking care of our planet and things like that is important. Because there are so many bad influences and bad role models out there. You as parents are the one who's the anchor, right? Because they're going to be exposed to that. You can't be there constantly protecting them. But if you give them the good anchors and the good habits, at home, guess what? Even though they might deviate, they might come back to the core. So that's why it's important that you practice those habits, reinforce it, and it's not a one size fits all. You got to figure out what works well, right? Like, when I used to talk to my daughter, how's school? All right, what'd you do? Oh, nothing. It's like, you go to school for nothing, But can you ask them open-ended question? Can you volunteer what you did at work? My God, I did something cool with my coworkers today. And then, oh my God, they get all chatty,
Yeah.
right? Going for a walk, just talking about different things. I thank God for COVID, because we made a habit of walking with my daughter. We negotiated, like, this is the time we're going to go walk twice a day, twice a week or 3 times a week. That's the best conversation. We'll just talk about nothing and everything. What you good at, honey? What do you like doing? Oh, I like sleeping. So even that part of sleeping, what? That's really good for your body. You need to have a good, mindset, a healthy mind, and things like that. So just kind of work with your kid based on where they want to, or don't be overpowering. Make it a natural part of the conversation.
Yeah. 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 Awesome. I love those tips, and definitely something I need to incorporate more into my life as well. So appreciate you, Ravi, for sharing those today. And as I mentioned, this is just a snippet, right? This is the sneak preview into deeper conversations that we can be having. So for those of you in the LinkedIn group, on the C-Suite Dads LinkedIn group, or for those of you that are just getting the newsletter, we want to create more opportunities like this so that these aren't just windows, but opportunities for us to dive deeper together. And so in the newsletter, in the LinkedIn group, we'll be posting some times for workshops and conversations for all of us to be building those relationships with one another. Because as dads, we can't do it alone. We need each other to get through this, especially those teen years. I'm not looking forward to them, I'll just be honest, on some levels. So let's work together. Let's be great dads together. And thank you, Ravi, for being a part of this video series.
Thanks, Brian. It was a pleasure.